Hello everyone. So today we will discuss about adaptation technique in translation. Uh, so first, adaptation. Adaptation occurs when something specific to one language culture is expressed in a totally different way that is familiar pinko or a Spanish restaurant menu dish be translated as kebab in English. It involves change the cultural or appropriate to another language culture. It is a shift in culture environment. Should reference when a situation in the source culture does not exist in the target culture. For example, French has Belgian jokes and England has Irish jokes. It is a well-known fact that in order to obtain a perfect translation, one must go beyond the superficial meaning of the words. It is very important to extract what the words mean in a particular situation according to the cultural context. Considering the cultural element helps us understand that translator is not the only person involved in the translation process. Eugene Nida has not that language is a part of culture, and in effect, it is the most complex set of habits that any culture exhibits. Language reflects the culture, provide access to the culture, and in many respects constitute a model of the culture. In this context, adaptation is a very important translation technique. It is necessary when something specific to one language culture is expressed in a totally different way that is familiar or appropriate to another language culture. It is a shift in cultural environment. Should pinko or a Spanish restaurant menu dish be translated as kebab in English involves changing the cultural reference when a situation in the source culture does not exist in the target. The notion of adaptation is traditionally played against the notion of translation when commenting on the origin of a text. It is a translation. No, it is an adaptation. What this means is that the text was not simply translated. There, there was a process of manipulation the text for a particular reason. That's for me. Mm,
Okay, and for the example of adaptation technique in translation are the first, the proto text was long in comparison to the space available for the meta text. In this case, the customer will ask for a short-term translation in order to fulfill his needs. This procedure is mainly used in the case of technical and technological text, but there are situations when even literary texts have to go through this process of. And the second is addressed to children. The publisher must adapt the text in order to avoid language that might be inappropriate for a child and prepares a censor adaptation. Any sexual reference must be eliminated as well as violent language. Words that are too difficult to understand will also be eliminated as well as all type of behaviors that are considered contrary to public moral. The third, ditto. This is the this is another type of censorship apply even if the text is devoted to an adult public. And the last, cultural features of the public differ to the content, so that is better accepted in the reality in which it will be used. The latter point refers mainly to text of a particular character, instruction, functioning of machine or programs, and etc. It is hard to perceive a difference between translation and adaptation because translation is actually a sort of adaptation. The translator, the translator must adapt the text even if he doesn't encounter one of the enumerated situation. The reason that the complexity of the text simply forces the translator to do so. He must adapt to all nuances of the language in order to obtain good results. Adaptation, also called cultural substitution or cultural equivalence, is a cultural element which replaces the original text with one that is better suited to the culture of of the target language. This achieves a more familiar and comparison text. For example, baseball, or we can say it football. Since the 60s, several authors like Michael Balliard, Helen Chukwit, Michael Pylard, and etc. have established other methods of translation such as explicitation or introducing specific details in the text of the target language. The second collocation, or using a sequence of words that usually greet the target language. And compensation, or where our allusion, allusion or references does not appear in one part of the text as in the source fashion, but later in the target text. One of the tools used in translation is adaptation. Is it used in many cases as cultural differences between different speakers can cause confusion that can sometimes be tricky to understand or simply prevent us from understanding each other. Adaptation is not to be confused with localization, however, which is used from understanding each other. Adaptation is not to be confused with, sorry, adaptation is not to be confused with localization, however, which is used when the target audience speaker a different variant of the same language, such as in the case of Latin America. When adapting a message, we are not translating it literally. This doesn't mean, however, that when adapting a message or idea, we are being unfaithful to the original message, or that we are not doing our job well as translating. Simply, there are situations in which it is required. British scholar Peter Newmark defines the adaptation taken from Finney and Darbenet as the use of recognized equivalence between two situations. It is a process of cultural equivalence, dear sir, or muy senor mío, yours faithfully, or le saluda atentamente. Okay, that's all that's all about our discussion.